Part 96. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 977. Chinyanan is not a player who specializes in playing kitchen knives or collecting whetstones, but he also prepares whetstones ranging from 400 mesh to 10,000 mesh. Mesh represents the thickness of the whetstone. A 400 mesh whetstone is suitable for sharpening and smoothing gaps, while a high mesh whetstone is relatively fine and can grind the knife to a mirror effect. Lu Chang'an planned to cut the thin end of the pigtail into small sections of about 1 centimeter, and cut the thick end into thin slices. This kind of processing requires 2 knives. Lu Chang'an did not rely on his own strength and planned to make full use of the knives. This was also a kind of enjoyment. Chinyanan can always bring him all kinds of satisfaction. She is good at cooking, her kitchen knives are also very good, and of course, she is a better person. Lu Chang'an finished beating the whetstone and was about to test the knife and start sharpening it when Zhu Huntang opened the kitchen door and jumped in front of Lu Chang'an. Yeah. Seeing that Lu Chang'an didn't even look at him, Zhu Huntang had to scream. When Lu Chang'an turned his head, Zhu Huntang turned around and faced him with his diaper-covered butt. Lu Chang'an sharpened his knife hard with an expressionless face. The knife was not broken and the whetstone was not cracked, which showed that he was emotionally stable. I am a sheep baby, I want to drink from grandma, and I want to sleep with Chinyanan tonight, Zhu Huntang said delicately. Sharpen the knife. Keep sharpening the knife. I am a baby, do you admit this? Zhu Huntang feels that she is cute and cute. Whether as a fairy or as a lamb, she is so lovable and loved by everyone. Lu Chang'an put down the knife in his hand, wiped his hands, took a video of Zhu Huntang with his mobile phone, and then sent it to Sumei. P.S. How about sending a sheep to your place to form an Antarctic zoo? Are you making a video to post on WeChat Moments? Everyone will definitely like it. After all, a lamb wearing a diaper will make people feel cuter than ever before, Zhu Huntang said with some anticipation. Just as Lu Chang'an was about to transform her into a truly cute sheep, a video request was sent over at a temperature of dozens of degrees below zero, and Lu Chang'an answered the call. Sumei in the video looks like the third wife. In fact, if you look carefully, you can see that the main difference between Sumei's real appearance and the third wife is her temperament. The facial features are actually 70–80% similar. This is similar to Lu Chang'an's habits. The difference between Lu Chang'an, Yechinayu and Lu Jianxi is also the difference in age, status, professional temperament. If you just look at the facial features, you can see that they are quite similar. Your temperament and grooming can sometimes really make your close relatives and friends feel that you are completely different. So if you can't find a boyfriend or girlfriend, don't rush to deny yourself. Start by dressing up and grooming yourself. Look at this sheep. Lu Chang'an changed the camera and asked Sumei to look at Zhu Huntang. Because Lu Chang'an was still pointing the camera on the back of his phone at him, Zhu Huntang was a little suspicious, but he held his head up habitually, trying to show some pride. But what does a sheep look like with pride? It was probably just a sideways glance. In order to express his disdain, Zhu Huntang turned around and faced the camera with his butt wrapped in diapers, shaking it a few times. Is this Xiao Tang? Sumei would send a video request as the third wife. Of course, she knew what the sheep in the video sent by Lu Chang'an was like. Yes, Lu Chang'an responded. If Zhongqing knew it, it meant that Sumei also knew it. But she didn't expect that Sumei was so calm that her daughter had changed. She just ignored her, and Lu Chang'an was here to manipulate her. The sky is being bumped by a sheep, and is so angry that it will be deformed. Zhu Huntang, Sumei shouted. Hearing his mother's voice, Zhu Huntang realized who Lu Chang'an had sent the message to. He was immediately frightened. He kicked his hooves wildly and scratched on the ground. He refused to run. Instead, the sheep stumbled and hit the door. On the door, knocking a hole in it. The sheep's head got stuck in the hole, and it kicked and kicked with its hooves until it finally pulled itself out. However, it heard its mother's screams again, and fell to the ground with palpitations and tense limbs, triggering the sheep's stress symptoms again. Fainted stiffly. After confirming that Sumei had seen the scene, Lu Chang'an came closer with his mobile phone and took a close-up of Zhu Huntang's whole body, especially staying on his diaper for 10 seconds. Then he turned the camera again and looked at Sumei is adjusting her expression in the video. "This is your daughter. Look at the good daughter you gave birth to," Lu Chang'an also said calmly. Actually, transforming into a sheep is also a superpower. She has just realized that if she learns to transform into a sheep today, she may learn to fly into the sky tomorrow, Sumei said with a hint, hoping that he would understand that this was her biological daughter. It doesn't matter if she can only transform into a sheep. Do you know that she needs to be escorted by me personally every day now so that she won't skip class? Even so, she still wants to skip class whenever she gets a chance. When she went to class today, she actually brought a smoke bomb. Do you think she will bring a bomb next time? Lu Chang'an did not often communicate with Sumei, but whenever he had the opportunity, he would accuse her face to face to let her know how failed her education was. Sumei thought for a while and asked, "When I was here last year, she didn't seem so presumptuous, right?" Lu Chang'an nodded. That was indeed the case. Last year, Zhu Huntang also skipped classes willfully, but not as much as this year. It was only after I left that she learned to change into a sheep when she was around you, right? Sumei asked again. Lu Chang'an was a little wary. What do you mean? I mean, since I handed her over to you, she has become less interested in studying and more playful. I sent her to the Nanshan ranch because I followed your master's instructions, right? But she was there. You learned how to transform into a sheep, and then how did you deal with it? Sumei looked at Lu Chang'an calmly. Lu Chang'an was speechless for a moment, shaved off Zhu Huntang and threw it into the pot. It seemed that it was not easy to talk about this in front of Sumei. It is said that you often beat her. Is this your method of education? You used to express various opinions. During the Republic of China, you wrote and published articles on new education. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, you worked as a professor for decades. Don't talk about things that are too long ago. As far as I know, you also have the education experience of Ye Sijin and Qin Peng. How come you can only beat children when you get to Zhu Huntang? Sumei asked a series of questions. Her breath was a little short, and she pressed her chest and stared at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an said nothing. I don't say that I educated her very well, but think about the changes she made after I handed her over to you. It was in your hands that she changed into a sheep, and it was in your hands that she started skipping classes and got worse. Now you still want to send her to Antarctica. Sumei's tone became much calmer. Is this how you want to be a father? Lu Chang'an quickly hung up the video, touched his face, and looked silently at the fainting sheep lying on the ground. How so? How did it become my fault? What did I do wrong? Do I need to reflect on myself? Lu Chang'an felt confused for the first time in his life. What's going on? Qin Yinan was originally worried that Zhu Huntang went to Lu Chang'an wearing diapers to get beaten. She fell behind, mainly because she couldn't bear to see the mess that Zhu Huntang had made in her bedroom. She tidied up the books and bed for a while, then picked up Zhu Huntang's clothes, and then heard the sound of the door being knocked. First, she was worried that Lu Chang'an would be hit on the head by Zhu Huntang in anger. Secondly, she was worried that Zhu Huntang would be angry and Lu Chang'an would grab it and throw it against the wall, and hurried over. What else can I do? I had a video call with Sumei and asked her to see what Zhu Huntang looked like. When Zhu Huntang was nervous and scared, he would freeze up and faint like a frightened sheep. Lu Chang'an opened his arms. Qin Yinan could feel her brother's endless sadness and stretched out her arms to hug him. At this time, she was the only one with a broad and thick heart to warm him and let him feel a little warmth. In this world, there are not only icy and poisonous little cotton-padded jackets, but also warm and caring little cotton-padded jackets. Did Sume say something? Chinyanan asked in his ear casually and casually. This kind of questioning usually makes people feel like yes, it was Sume who caused it. Otherwise, why would so many people be wary or try to take advantage of the situation? Do you think the way I educate Zhu Huntang is not right? Lu Chang'an is a person who is good at self-reflection after all. This kind of self-reflection is of course different from the colonial mentality of inferiority, cowardice, and self-abasement, and is more in line with the gentleman's way of I have to examine myself 3 times every day. What kind of education method do you have? Chinyanan couldn't help but laugh, but she was slightly worried. Could it be that children like Lu Changchang and Zhu Huntang couldn't be educated and guided like ordinary children? After all, they are Lu Chang'an's children, so they may naturally have a stronger heart and persistence, and it is generally difficult to change their habits and psychology. This can be seen from the failure of Sumei's education. I used to think that Sumei was laissez-faire or not good at education, but now I think about it, maybe it is because Zhu Huntang has a stubborn nature that is difficult to change, and the general educational philosophy is not suitable for her. Or maybe it will be the same with Lu Hanchen in the future. What kind of child will Lu Hanchen be, just like throwing dice and resigned to fate? I have to reflect on and learn about education methods. Lu Chang'an quickly recovered from his sluggish state. After all, he has a strong heart. The failures he told Zhu Huntang today are nothing. Actually, fathers are generally good at educating their sons and teaching them some qualities of being strong and independent, but they don't know how to teach their daughters, Chinyanan said objectively, which is also a hint. From the current point of view, Lu Changchang's education in the future, anyway, we can't do it the way Lu Chang'an treats Zhu Huntang now. That's right, handling the pig's tail is the most important thing now. Lu Chang'an patted Chinyanan's slender waist. The soft and slightly elastic feeling was like the fat and thick section of the braised pig's tail. At this time, the sheep seemed to wake up on its own. Its tail swung twice in the diaper, making a pop sound, and then it stood up with its forehooves stretched out and paddled a few times. The sheep shook his still dizzy head, walked to the door, stuck his head into the hole he had just made and pulled it out, exclaiming in surprise, "Ah! I'm so powerful!" Zhu Huntang, your mother already knows that you are so powerful, Lu Chang'an couldn't help but say, but he didn't expect that she was so proud of herself now that she fainted out of fear just now. My mother? She's just an Antarctic, Zhu Huntang encouraged himself. Okay, next time I will tell your mother that in your eyes, she is just an Antarctic. The sky is high and the emperor is far away, and she has nothing to do with you. Chinyanan knows his best friend best. Zhu Huntang is obviously fierce in appearance and soft in heart. Zhu Huntang turned around and saw Chinyanan throwing herself into Lu Chang'an's arms, looking like she was about to absorb nutrients. She quickly got between the two people, separated them, and looked like she was about to hit him before she fainted. Don't be afraid of polluting the innocent and pure heart of the sheep baby. It's annoying. Zhu Huntang woke up, and Chinyanan was too embarrassed to continue to stay in his brother's arms. Although it was nothing, the warm embrace was no different from Zhu Huntang's usual search for warmth and tolerance. Lu Chang'an picked up the kitchen knife. At this time, the elevator doorbell rang. Lu Chang'an then remembered that he invited Yan Hui and Yan Qingcheng to have dinner. However, Zhu Huntang made a fuss about him and he forgot to change clothes. There was another girl wearing diapers in the kitchen. Sheep. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 979. Chinyanan was a little panicked and said to Zhu Huntang, "Go to my bedroom and restore your human form." "No, I'm super cute, that's what I want." Sheep shook his butt and refused. "At most, if I don't speak, they will just think that I am your pet." "You haven't spoken at all. Did you originally plan to chat with others like this?" Qin Yinan pulled one of its ears and walked away. The most important thing is that I don't want you to pretend to be my pet. That will make people I think the master also has a problem. Zhu Huntang put his hooves together and pressed against the ground to resist, but he was still dragged away by Qin Yinan. After all, sheep's ears were larger than human ears, so Qin Yinan could easily use force, making it difficult for Zhu Huntang to use his sheep's strength. Lu Chang'an wiped his hands silently and went to the guest room to change to Professor Lu Jianxi. He thought that Qin Yinan was better at dealing with Zhu Huntang. He was good at coaxing her and could use violence. Zhu Huntang's money and bread man routine was of no use to Qin Yinan. So, how important is a good stepmother, huh? Why do you think Qin Yinan is the stepmother? I really got caught up in the rhythm of these women acting all day long. Qin Yinan pulled Zhu Huntang into the bedroom, then opened the elevator door, waiting for Yan Hui and Yan Qingcheng to come up, and said apologetically, I was in the kitchen just now, I've been waiting for a long time. You're welcome, Yan Hui said with a smile. She had lived in Qin Yinan's house for a few days and had become quite familiar with Qin Yinan. From the beginning, Qin Yinan's slightly resistant attitude was now able to talk to Yan Hui in private. Some teasing and ambiguous topics, basically all related to Professor Lu Jianxi. They are all his women, and they are always particularly close. Teacher Qin, excuse me, Yan Qingcheng said politely. As the monitor, she had a little more contact with Qin Yinan in the last semester, but this semester Qin Yinan came to school less often. She was in class with Zhu Huntang at work. Just as casual. Come, sit in the living room, Lu, Professor Lu will cook in person today. This is a very rare oral experience. Qin Yinan led the two of them into the living room and sat down. At this time, Zhu Huntang ran out bouncing like a spring. It was still a sheep. What fun was there in being a human? That's just the basic form of existence, being a sheep is fun. Qin Yinan somewhat understood Lu Chang'an's mood. Faced with Zhu Huntang, who was completely disobedient and willful, who wouldn't want to beat her a few times and then throw her to Antarctica. Wow, little lamb, I actually see you here, Yan Qingcheng was pleasantly surprised, feeling like we were reunited after a long separation. He never thought that he would be able to see the naughty lamb he met at Nanshan Ranch when he returned to Junsha. You can recognize it as the lamb from Nanshan Ranch, of course, because the hair on its body is cut unevenly. It's just that at Nanshan Ranch, it always had a plastic bag on its buttocks. At Qin Yinan's house, it was put into diapers, and its treatment was significantly improved. Did Miss Zhu bring it back as a pet and keep it at Teacher Qin's house? Yan Qingcheng asked Qin Yinan while touching the lamb. What can Qin Yinan say? He nodded and hit the sheep. Zhu Huntang raised his hoof and kicked Qin Yinan without hesitation. Everyone wanted to bully him. What a cute little lamb, if its hair hadn't been cut so ugly, it would have been even more beautiful. Yan Hui also squatted down and gently stroked the lamb's back. Yan Hui still likes sheep. She raised sheep in school. When she was short of school expenses, she killed the sheep and sold them for money. Hearing the compliment, the sheep proudly raised his head and said "Baa." As expected, he is always loved by everyone. But as soon as Yan Hui squatted down, her favorite ups and downs suddenly appeared, and a patch of white flowers could be seen. It quickly squeezed into Yan Hui's arms and rubbed its head comfortably against Yan Hui's chest. It was even more beautiful than Yan Hui's. Qingcheng's somewhat stiff underwear felt much more natural and supportive. Seeing this scene, Qin Yinan couldn't help but shake his head. Zhu Huntang didn't know where he inherited his love for women and his broad mind. His brother didn't have this preference either, otherwise wouldn't he be invincible? From the fact that his brother chose An Nuan as his girlfriend, it can be seen that he doesn't care much about the plumpness of women. Itchy, hee, what are you doing, little lamb? Yan Hui stroked the lamb affectionately. The little lambs that are used as pet sheep are still cuter than the sheep raised in the mountains. Those sheep are very cute. Behave in a spoiled manner. Women all like cute creatures, especially cute creatures that can act coquettishly. Why does it wear diapers? Is it because it is afraid that it will urinate everywhere and make the house dirty? Yan Qingcheng raised her head and asked Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan really doesn't know if her best friend will defecate everywhere after turning into a sheep, but no matter how much Zuhuntang acts and willfully behaves, he has received basic quality education after all, right? Yes, it is just a stupid sheep after all. Cats and dogs have to be trained to defecate in designated places. The IQ of sheep should not be as good as cats and dogs, Qin Yinan said with certainty. As for her mental activities just now, that is another matter, and it does not prevent her from taking the opportunity to slander Xia Zuhuntang. Zuhuntang was furious. If he hadn't been trapped in Yan Hui's valley and his eyes were blurred, wouldn't he give Qin Yinan a slap now? It seems to have understood what you said, and it's a little unhappy. Yan Hui laughed again, and the lamb's expression was also very cute. Yan Qingcheng touched the lamb's head and reached out to pick it up and let it play coquettishly in her arms, but the lamb refused and only crawled into Yan Hui's arms, which made Yan Qingcheng feel a little embarrassed. Miss Zhu has fed too many pets, and I don't know if this lamb can be petted, Yan Qingcheng said worriedly, for the lamb, seeing as it was sent here, it was not even fed in the Bailong Center, may have fallen out of favor. No, this is the pet that Zuhuntang cares about most. She has already given an order to let her people see the lamb as they see Zuhuntang. Professor Lu Jianxi walked out of the guest room. He changed into Lu's Tang-style men's clothing, with a wide robe and long sleeves, and still wore an apron in front of him. He looked very elegant, like a man returning to his family, with a sophisticated and handsome sense of life. Seeing Professor Lu Jianxi, Yan Hui quickly pushed away the sheep that was squeezing into her arms and straightened her collar. Although the lamb was cute, it seemed a little strange. It actually bit off 2 buttons of her collar. Pellets. I didn't care just now, I just thought Professor Lu Jianxi had not arrived yet. Dog women, they all forget about sex. Zuhuntang looked at Yan Hui, then Qin Yinan, and Yan Qingcheng, who had no interest in her. He decided to forget about Nina for the time being, and walked to the sofa to sit down. The little sheep sitting posture with his belly facing forward, his back leaning against the sofa, and his limbs swinging freely, immediately made everyone laugh, and he was sitting there like a human being. Professor Lu turned his head away, not wanting to see the sheep. He thought it would change back, but little did he know that it was more interested in being a sheep than a human being. You said you cook. I haven't eaten your food for a long time. The iced crayfish you made before was amazing. It seemed a bit frivolous to button up in front of the man, but Yan Hui just pressed it gently. Chest, said with a smile. I won't eat iced crayfish today, just wait. Professor Lu Jianxi, like his son Lu Chang'an, has a big world and a big kitchen job, so he is not too moved by Yan Hui's charming look with her collar spread out. Professor Lu, let me help you. Yan Qingcheng proactively wanted to have more contact with Professor Lu Jianxi. It's just the younger generation's admiration for their outstanding elders, not the absurd anecdote that Professor Lu Jianxi is his son. Zuhuntang suddenly discovered that after transforming into a sheep, it had a shortcoming. It was inconvenient for it to speak in front of people. But now it had something to say that would make the bad old man furious. It immediately made him feel itchy and wanted to speak human words. I still feel girls should not talk about helping a man with a fight. It sounds like she is actively asking to help him with that. Of course, just now Zuhuntang also said that he would help Lu Chang'an, so that would not be included in this list. Alas, there was no way to speak. After all, he had to be cautious and not scare ordinary humans like Yan Hui and Yan Qingcheng. Zuhuntang had no choice but to sit on the sofa and bleat loudly. Then let me take care of this little sheep. It seems to feel that it has been left out. Yan Hui was in a good mood recently, and she was overflowing with love. A while ago, She wanted to give Lu Chang'an maternal love, but now that she saw the cute sheep, she wanted to be a mother again. The female shepherd. Yan Hui sat on the sofa, and the sheep seemed to have seen a valley with lush water and grass, and excitedly came over. Ba she. I feel like I'm a little fat. Qinyan brought dried fruit snacks from the storage room and placed them on several tables. She turned sideways and let Yan Hui take a look at her figure. No, even if you have gained weight, just press it a few times, Yan Hui said with a hint that only two people understood. That time, Professor Lu gave two people a massage. It was a bit ambiguous and a private activity that was difficult to tell to a fourth person. Naturally, he and Qinyan established a tacit understanding. Professor Lu can be called a magic hand. The fat he presses will moisten like ice cream licked by his tongue. I hope so. Qinyan pouted, turned to look at his butt, and then walked away. Zhu Huntang frowned and observed secretly, had these two women served the bad old man together? The tone of conversation was the same as the young wives from the wealthy families on the Nanyang side of Nongong Island, talking and chatting with each other every day. This is a bit dangerous. Yan Hui is already favored, and the bad old man is willing to cook for her personally. She also has a good relationship with Qinyan. Qinyan, who has always been alone and unhappy with everyone, finally has an ally, and the power of the palace suddenly increases. Ah! Zhu Huntang thought about it carefully. The old man had never even cooked to entertain her. Every time Zhu Huntang ate the food he cooked, it was just a waste of time. The only time he specially cooked for her was when he and Zhou Shuling set up a rice noodle stall last year, and Zhu Huntang ate a bowl of spicy rooster noodle in red soup that was like poison. Zhu Huntang was immediately angry and felt like a failure. He was supposed to be the most favored, but in the end he was treated inferior to others. No, he had to find ways to bring his mother back from Antarctica and compete with him for favor. She already felt that she was a little outnumbered. Looking at the women in this room, except for Yan Qingcheng, a silly kid who thought he was smart and prepared to test some so-called truths that were actually of no importance, they were all bamboos. The fierce rival of the family faction. Of course, these thoughts did not prevent Zhu Huntang from lying in the enemy's arms, bound by tenderness and unwilling to move. Qinyan saw Zhu Huntang squinting and motionless, shook his head, talked to Yan Qingcheng with a smile, and gave Yan Qingcheng an apron. Orange, wash the Chinese tune and blanch it in water. Chinese tune contains nitrates, which can be easily converted into nitrites. Most people need to blanch them to remove most of the nitrites before eating them. It will basically have no effect on the body, Professor Jianxi said to Yan Qingcheng kindly. Listening to Professor Liu's mellow and gentle voice full of middle-aged and elderly male characteristics, Yan Qingcheng felt inexplicably happy. Such fathers are really easy to like. For a moment, she forgot her purpose. She just smiled and squinted her eyes, and then realized that if she were not confused by Professor Lu Jianxi's slightly white hair and the fine wrinkles around his eyebrows, this person's facial features were similar to those of Lu Chang'an. Are extremely similar. Oh, there seems to be no problem. Lu Jianxi is Lu Chang'an's father. Yan Qingcheng sorted out clusters of short-stemmed Chinese tunes with purple-red leaves, removed some of the stems, and then blanched them. Tune will be used in two places today, one for fresh shrimp pasta and one for fried meat. Lu Jianxi took over the tune that Yan Qingcheng had prepared and was in a good mood. This is the real aggressor. What did the other one who said he was going to do it just now do? He gave Lu Chang'an a slap, then turned into a sheep and played with him, shaking his butt wrapped in diapers at him, and finally smashed the door open and lay on the ground pretending to be dead. Professor Lu turned his head and looked at Yan Qingcheng, who was seriously helping to wash and chop vegetables, and his eyes became more gentle and appreciative. Yan Qingcheng turned her head to look at him, feeling the affection in his eyes. She was inexplicably reminded of the way Lu Chang'an looked at her when he invited her to go horse riding at Nanshan Ranch 2 days ago. Blushing slightly, Yan Qingcheng pointed at the pigtails and asked, Professor Lu, are these pigtails made in two ways? Well, the braised pigtail is to be roasted. Stir-fry the sliced ginger, garlic, and pepper, then add water and simmer for a while. Qin Yanan likes to eat pigtail. How are your teeth? If you like to eat softer, I'll simmer it for a while, Lu Jianxi asked, taking care of Yan Qingcheng's taste. Usually he only cooked according to his own habits. I don't have a problem. You follow your own taste. Lu Chang'an is a master of cooking, so you must be better. Who is qualified to point fingers in front of you? Yan Qingcheng said with admiration. Yan Qingcheng will never lick Lu Chang'an in all directions without any bottom line like some people who are accompanied by little ho, but to say some respectful words from the bottom of his heart to a respected elder like Professor Lu Jianxi, this is it should. As for the other side of Professor Lu Jianxi, it is another side after all. What Yan Qingcheng is facing now is Professor Lu Jianxi. In short, Yan Qingcheng suddenly didn't want to test it anymore. Anyway, it felt good to be standing next to Professor Lu Jianxi. Little Chenzi is really good at talking. Lu Jianxi smiled. Chang'an's cooking skills are on par with mine. You can learn more cooking skills from him in the future and let him take time to teach you. Anyway, he spends a lot of time there. Disciplining Zhu Huntang is completely in vain. Will he be willing? Yan Qingcheng didn't have this confidence. Lu Chang'an's favorite thing was probably to force Zhu Huntang to study and take time to teach her cooking skills. I'm afraid he didn't have the skills. I said he was willing, and he was willing, Professor Lu Jianxi said with certainty, but he still couldn't command his son? It sounded like he meant something. Was he taking the initiative to tell her some information? Yan Qingcheng was not sure, but Professor Liu's attitude and caring for her were palpable, which made Yan Qingcheng feel warm in her heart. Who doesn't want to have a respectable, elegant, and handsome elder who takes care of him and guides him in every little thing in his life? Yet, the little sheep couldn't bear it and rushed in. Did it hear what the old man was saying? You actually say that disciplining Maya is a complete waste of effort? Now that Mai is so powerful, he can knock him away with one punch, and he can also transform. What else does he want? Does he have to be omnipotent and have the entire earth under his feet to be satisfied? There is also the tone of voice that I love when talking to Yan Qingcheng, which is obviously only used when talking to Mai. Aren't you watching TV on the sofa? Lu Jianxi said to the sheep. He could see clearly that the lamb had just rubbed against Yan Hui's arms. Of course, he can't just say that you continue to rub your favorite Nina. He slightly suspects that Zhu Huntang has that special complex because of a lack of maternal love, or because he was not breastfed when he was a child. What it barked just now seems to be, it's a bit strange. Yan Qingcheng touched his ears. In short, this sheep always gave people a very magical feeling. The lamb rushed over and squeezed in between Lu Jianxi and Yan Qingcheng. It raised its two front hooves on the kitchen table and looked around. Although it can't help with the work now, it can still cause trouble. We must not let the bad old man and Yan Qingcheng have that kind of father-to-daughter relationship. It turns out that not only Bai Fen is the Ho God, but Yan Qingcheng is too. Zhu Huntang suddenly understood An Nuan a little bit. An Nuan's feeling when she saw Bai Hui digging was probably the same as when she saw Yan Qingcheng rubbing against the old man. What are you going to do? Professor Lu Jianxi frowned. This was a stark contrast. Yan Qingcheng was at the side to help him. The sheep squeezed into the middle and made a mess. The sheep's hooves scratched and pulled randomly on the chopping board. Huh! What a tender vegetable this is. I want to eat the vegetables you have worked so hard to cut and destroy the achievements of your loving father and filial piety. The sheep jumped up and opened its mouth wide, and took all the tuna on the chopping board into its mouth in one mouthful. It chewed big mouthfuls, letting you, drink, tui, ah. The lamb fell straight down from the chopping board, twitching all over, and was poisoned. The bad old man and the little hoe god must be conspiring to kill me. This is some kind of ghost thing, it must be poisonous, poisonous. The sheep's limbs tensed and twitched a few times, then fainted again. There have been no updates in the past few days. It's not that I have given up on immortality, it's just the consistent rhythm. Immortality will continue to be written. If you have nothing to do, you can read Xiaohua's new book, or you can just read Chang Sheng. Anyway, this book will have a long life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 980. Lu Jianxi pulled out the cleaning robot from the wall and cleaned the broken tune buds all over the floor. The cleaning robot wandered around on the ground for a while, and soon found what was suspected to be pig, beef, mutton, and poultry meat garbage. It sucked and pulled at the lamb. It couldn't handle it at all. It suddenly turned on a red light and sounded an alarm, and patted the lamb. Upload the photo to the customer service center for assistance in updating the process. Lu Jianxi kicked the little sheep to the corner of the kitchen and turned off the cleaning robot. This thing was still not as reliable as a broom and a dustpan. Is it okay? Yan Qingcheng said worriedly. After all, this thing is Zhu Huntang's pet. You can't just deal with it casually. Let's add a mutton hot pot dish later, right? But Professor Liu's attitude is really like buying a lot of vegetables during the holidays and throwing them aside for disposal. It's better not to eat mutton hot pot today. After Yan Qingcheng finished speaking, he felt that this sentence seemed to be addressed to Lu Chang'an. Only Lu Chang'an could really do such a thing and eat Zhu Huntang's pet. When Yan Qingcheng was teaching Zhu Huntang was chatting in random directions, and even talked about Lu Chang'an eating 2 of her dogs. Yan Qingcheng, a native of rural areas, has a problem with not eating dog meat and treating dogs as family members. However, he generally does not eat dogs kept at home as pets. He does not eat his own dogs, nor does he eat those from other people's homes. I always feel that there is something wrong with eating a dog that I know is a friend's pet, right? Lu Chang'an really has no inhibitions. But now I am facing Professor Lu Jianxi. After all, it is easy for me to regard Professor Lu Jianxi as Lu Chang'an. Sure enough, once I have doubts, I will feel more and more uncomfortable. Have I adjusted everything back? Don't eat it. Tune and mutton are not suitable to be eaten together. It is easy to get angry and sick, and the taste will be strange. Lu Jianxi nodded. Why is it still fainting? Do you want to give it some treatment? Yan Qingcheng still cared about the sheep and said, touching the fat and tender lamb legs. Many people don't eat tune because they are allergic. The same goes for sheep. Ewes that eat tune are prone to posterior cavity bleeding, and if they are pregnant, they may miscarry. Professor Lu popularized some unpopular knowledge. Oh, fortunately, it just chewed it twice and then spit it all out. It's a pity these tunes. When they first came on the market a while ago, I saw them selling for more than 100 yuan a pound in the supermarket, which scared me. Yan Qingcheng stood up and said. There are some tunes here, you wash them again and I'll take them out. Professor Lu Jianxi still felt that something was wrong with the sheep fainting in the corner. It was easy for him to think that it was food, and he had to always remind him that this thing was his own and could not be eaten. It felt very wrong. Okay, can I help you light the charcoal fire? Good. Hearing Professor Lu blurt out good, there is really no sense of disobedience. If Lu Chang'an said that he was good, Yan Qingcheng felt that she would blush. Sure enough, getting along with Professor Lu was more pleasant. Lu Jianxi took the sheep out under his arm and passed by Qin Yanan and Yan Hui. 2 women with completely different identities, ages, and living environments were chatting very speculatively. The 2 women glanced at him with the sheep, smiled at each other, and then went on to talk about Qin Yanan and Professor Lu going to visit Yan Hui in the future. They could try out what it was like to spend the night and live in an old farmhouse. The old farmhouse asked a carpenter to make a big bed. It's big and sturdy, and can withstand the tossing of 3 people sleeping on it and swatting mosquitoes. Lu Jianxi brought the sheep to Qin Yanan's bedroom and began to pat its cheeks. After a while, the lamb opened its eyes dizzily, and then stood up unsteadily. Its limbs were still a little weak, and its hooves staggered to support itself. After shaking its body, it yelled, "What?" It felt the taste of Chinese tune in its mouth. Just when it opened its mouth to spit, Lu Jianxi held its mouth. "I forgot to tell you. You fainted twice and I talked to your mother on the phone. She agreed that I would send you to the Antarctic." Lu Jianxi frightened the little sheep. "She is crazy and will agree to you sending me to Antarctica." Xiao Yang was a little wary, but more of a disbelief. What good will it do her to train me to be an Antarctic? Lu Jianxi didn't bother to ask why he sent it to the Antarctic. He understood that he wanted to train it to become an Antarctic, and just stared at it calmly. Okay, I'll be good." Xiao Yang didn't want to be an Antarctic. This bad old man could do anything. Then just be a human being. But such a cute little lamb suddenly disappeared, and a super invincible and cute fairy came out. Such a strong visual impact will make them feel something is wrong. Don't worry, it won't happen. After Lu Jianxi finished speaking, he went out. Xiao Yang walked around Qin Yanan's bedroom and returned to the appearance of the eldest lady. She found that her clothes were folded on the cabinet, and next to her was Qin Yanan's underwear storage box. The layout of Qin Yanan's bedroom was ordinary and ordinary. There was no special cloakroom for storing underwear. Zhu Huntang sighed and took out a set from the underwear storage box, which was only about a 30-inch suitcase. Only the male protagonist would obscenely play with the heroine's underwear. Zhu Huntang herself had countless beautiful underwear. Of course, she had no interest in playing, she was just curious. Zhu Huntang put Qin Yanan's underwear on her body. It felt empty, like a child wearing adult clothes, and she suddenly felt angry. "Big! Big! Big!" Zhu Huntang shouted 3 times. Nothing happened. Zhu Huntang was greatly disappointed. Why could he not make certain parts of his body bigger even though he could transform into a sheep? Is local transformation more difficult than full body transformation? Zhu Huntang recalled that Lu Chang'an once told her that she could ask her mother to realize her wish, and she could naturally and perfectly become a nasty big-haired woman without surgery. However, Zhu Huntang has always been a woman who likes to rely on herself and be independent and self-reliant. She already has the ability to transform, but she still needs to seek help from her mother on such a matter, which is a bit embarrassing. Why can men, even ordinary men, change without superpowers? He bleated. Big. Big, big, big. Super big. Zhu Huntang shouted several times, but still failed. At this time, she remembered her stepfather's teachings, persistence, hard work, and not being afraid of failure, so Zhu Huntang shouted 10 more times. Forget it, Yang Li is sometimes poor. Zhu Huntang put on his own clothes. He was really diligent and frugal. He would pick up the clothes that were casually thrown away at other people's homes and wear them again. He would have to make the old man praise him later. Today, she has already acted diligently and frugally twice, which means that even if the Zhu family goes bankrupt in the future and she becomes a poor fairy with nothing, she will probably be able to adapt to a life of poverty, just like a life of indifference. Of course, I have super thighs. Even though the old man is cruel, he still loves me very much in his heart and cannot possibly want me to live a miserable life. Zhu Huntang walked from the bedroom to the hot spring room, then went up to the rooftop swimming pool, opened the one-way side door and exited the hotel, and then took the special elevator to Qin Yanan's room back. Here he comes. Seeing Zhu Huntang become a human again, Qin Yanan introduced to Yan Hui with a smile, Zhu Huntang, I saw it in the video. This was last Saturday when Professor Lu made a video call to beg the sponsor of the Charity Education Fund. At that time, Yan Hui was sitting next to him, but he had not spoken to Zhu Huntang. Ms. Yan, I've admired you for a long time. Zhu Huntang greeted Yan Hui and glanced at the kitchen again. I'm looking for my sheep. Have you seen my sheep? It seems to be in the kitchen. Yan Hui also turned to look at the kitchen, and then smiled again. That sheep is quite cute. It's also delicious when made into hot pot. Qin Yanan teased. Zhu Huntang was extremely angry. Qin Yanan, you provoke me. I want to eat mutton hot pot, why am I provoking you? Just wait for your Lu Qianqian to come out, Zhu Huntang snorted. She had no time to talk to Qin Yanan and hurried to the kitchen. Now she is also in danger of the little Ho, and she must be on guard against Yan Qingcheng taking advantage of her absence to swing the little Ho at the speed of light. From the recent conversation with Bai Hui, we can know that Bai Hui thinks that Yan Qingcheng is also a Ho god. It seems that Bai Hui's intuition is still very accurate, but he did not expect that what Yan Qingcheng was digging was not the same piece that Bai Hui was already digging. But to change the angle to dig Zhu Huntang's place. No, Zhu Huntang thought about it carefully and was shocked. Yan Qingcheng is digging with a hoe and a hoe. She is not only grabbing the place where Bai Hui is digging, but also digging for Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang would not have thought this way before, but now that Yan Qingcheng has begun to suspect that Lu Chang'an and Lu Jianxi are the same person, she now wants to grab them with both hands and want them both. Being able to have a boyfriend and a stepfather at the same time, what girl can resist? Otherwise, they wouldn't always call their boyfriend daddy. This was the truth. Zhu Huntang had no time to admire his wit and pushed open the kitchen door. Fortunately, he didn't see Yan Qingcheng leaning in Lu Jianxi's arms, rubbing her face and calling daddy sweetly. Yet, finding that no one noticed that he had come in, Zhu Huntang had no choice but to call out. The eldest lady is here. She happens to be cooking. Would you like to eat here later? Yan Qingcheng said with a smile, I tasted your cooking at Nanshan Ranch. You can also try my cooking later, this tuna and shrimp pasta, Professor Lu will teach me how to make it. Is there any tea? I would like to drink some fresh green tea. This season is the time to pick tea. Zhu Huntang reminded Yan Qingcheng to pay attention to his tea speech. You also know that you can pick tea during the season. Lu Jianxi was a little surprised. Zhu Huntang basically couldn't remember the fruits in season, because she could basically eat any fruit she wanted at any time, and tea was even more common. People drink it at any time of the year. My family has a tea garden in Linan. It is said that it belonged to my family before liberation, and now it has just returned to my mother's hands. My mother often picks tea and makes tea by herself, but she only makes very little. She drinks it herself. Zhu Juntangyi clapped his hands and said, while paying attention to whether Yan Qingcheng understood his hint. Professor Lu Jianxi was stunned for a moment. Yechenai used to stay with Su Mei in the tea garden in Linan, leaving behind many songs and romances. It was probably on one of those nights that some special cells, which would be named Zhu Huntang in the future, were born. I don't know how many years later, they came to him with a bleeding sound. Hey, thinking about these things, I sighed a little and felt a little sad. So looking at this sheep, there must be nothing I can do against her. Come here, Professor Lu Jianxi said to Zhu Huntang with a frown. What are you doing? Zhu Huntang walked over in a swaggering manner. Even if he wanted to hit me again, I was not afraid. Professor Lu Jianxi hugged Zhu Huntang and then pushed her out of the kitchen. Zhu Huntang was puzzled. This seemed to be the first time that the bad old man took the initiative to hug him like this. Could it be that he finally planned to give up his position as the leader of the Zhu Fenglai sword sect? I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 981. Zhu Huntang pushed the kitchen door, but it was locked. Apparently, they didn't welcome the chef's instruction on their rough technical skills. She bent down and took a look through the door that was broken by the sheep. Yan Qingcheng was standing at the other end of the kitchen counter, 4 or 5 meters away from the old man. Zhu Huntang felt relieved and said loudly, "I will come and take a look anytime." After issuing the warning, Zhu Huntang began to think carefully. Lu Chang'an is a strong-willed person, even slightly stronger than Zhu Huntang. He will not distort his personality to the point of becoming abnormal just because he changes his identity. Therefore, when he hugged Zhu Huntang just now, he should not have been suddenly conquered by the fairy's peerless charm and wanted to blaspheme her. Combined with her excellent performance today, it is probably that Zhu Huntang's ability has been recognized. He is planning to pass on the position of the leader of the Zhuzhu Fenglai sword sect to her, recognizing her as the orthodox one, and comparing her with ordinary statistics like Yan Qingcheng. The stepdaughter outside the home is distinguished. It was very possible that Zhu Huntang became arrogantly happy thinking about it. He walked into the living room and looked at Qin Yinan with disdain. "After dinner today, come and play at my place. Let me be the master of the house." "Oh, no, the landlord. Her place is too small, there is nothing interesting, and there are only 2 rooms for sleeping." Zhu Huntang warmly invited Yan Hui. "Zhu Huntang, I didn't offend you, did I? You just invite people when you invite them, and you look disgusted with the way I am here. You are not allowed to come to the table for dinner later." Qin Yinan was chatting happily with Yan Hui, when Zhu Huntang suddenly came over very unsatisfactory blending. "You don't allow me to serve on the table, be careful one day I come and eat all the flowers and plants you raise, as well as all the leaves and bamboos around you, so that you can't see any green on the entire top of Lushan Mountain," Zhu Huntang threatened. Ah! Yan Hui gradually felt that this financial owner seemed a little abnormal. How could he be so threatening to others? "You still eat bamboo, do you think you are a panda? Try it. I can bring my whole zoo. You can't come up. Lushan prohibits bringing in exotic species. None of your animals are local." "Really? Why didn't I know? Besides bleeding, what else do you know? Wait for your Lu Qianqian to come out." Zhu Huntang found Qin Yinan's sharp teeth and had to threaten Lu Qianqian again. Qin Yinan is too lazy to pay attention to her, but he knows this trick. "Maybe when Lu Changchang comes out, you will be sent to Antarctica to become an Antarctic." With Zhu Huntang's recent arrogant behavior, it is really possible. Seeing that Qin Yinan did not dare to reply, Zhu Huntang judged that he had won the argument, so he proudly returned to the original topic and continued to invite Yan Hui. "How about it? I will send you back by helicopter tomorrow." "Okay, I'll excuse you." Yan Hui originally wanted to spend the last night with the teacher, but thinking about it, since they have renewed their relationship, there will be many opportunities in the future. Zhu Huntang invites you like this, and it is also the gold medal of the charity foundation in the future. Lord, you must give yourself face. Zhu Huntang was satisfied. He had succeeded in several major things today. First, he beat Lu Chang'an. Second, he made Lu Chang'an confirm that he was the orthodox heir. Third, he ruined Qin Yinan's plan to be the dragon essence pot. And fourth, Yan Qingcheng's little hoe was temporarily frustrated by consolidating his corner. More efforts are needed. Without Zhu Huntang or sheep to cause trouble, Professor Lu Jianxi and Yan Qingcheng cooperated happily and efficiently, and soon prepared a delicious dinner. When 5 people were dining, they did not sit at small square tables with 4 sides, but at a long dinner table. Zhu Huntang naturally sat at the head of the host's seat. Of course Qin Yinan would not argue with her. This little girl had no competencies at all. Even when attending the Qin family banquet, she dared to sit in the seat that usually belonged to Qin Peng. Fortunately, an old man like Qin Peng sat on the threshold. Then the real chief is on the threshold. Qin Yinan pulled Yan Hui to sit on one side, so Yan Qingcheng had to sit next to Professor Lu Jianxi. There was no way she could sit on the other side and look at everyone from a distance. When Zhu Huntang saw the situation, he suddenly found that he was overwhelmed by today's victory and had no wit at all. It turns out that at Nanshan Ranch, Zhu Huntang also sat as the host. As a distinguished guest, Dan Dan often sat opposite Zhu Huntang. The person sitting next to Lu Chang'an was usually Bai Hui or Zhou Shuling. In short, it is a position that occupies the advantage of the Ho. It is a position that can only be occupied by the Ho god or the doting daughter-in-law of the bad old man. Why did he unknowingly drive Yan Qingcheng to that position? It seems that we still have to stay awake and keep working hard. This great situation cannot be lost because of carelessness. Zhu Huntang, are you practicing holding your breath? It's time to eat Qinyan, pushed Zhu Huntang. This guy can no longer be a best friend, but it made Qinyan feel that he had to be a stepmother to discipline her. Why doesn't anyone bring me food? Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an. Shouldn't you give me a bowl of the farthest dragon's claw mushroom soup? At Nanshan Ranch, Lu Chang'an would make the first cut of roasted whole lamb. Give me the meat. Lu Jianxi glared back at her, stretched out his hand to fill a bowl of soup for her and handed it over. Qinyan sneered. This was blatant coquettishness. Could it be that he had guessed the truth more or less? However, Qinyan would not be jealous of Zhu Huntang. If it were any other woman, Qinyan would immediately serve soup for others to create a contrast and let everyone have different opinions. Zhu Huntang lowered his head, held the bowl close to his mouth, glanced up, and glanced at Yan Qingcheng, demonstrating calmly. Yan Qingcheng didn't see it, and even if she did, she wouldn't understand what Zhu Huntang was showing. What she was used to doing at the dining table was to get up and help the chef, Professor Lu Jianxi, fill a bowl of soup to express his hard work and help. Qinyan served a bowl of soup to thank the host for the hospitality. It was natural for her to serve her mother a bowl of soup, and finally she served herself a bowl. Zhu Huntang was drinking, and Yan Qingcheng smiled and said gently, "You drink it first, and I will serve you a bowl later." He bleated, "This soup tasted really bad." Zhu Huntang put down the soup bowl angrily. Professor Lu Jianxi looked at Zhu Huntang, and then at Yan Qingcheng beside him. This girl is really sensible and considerate. Children who grow up in a poor environment are just a little bit more distressing. The sheep next to him, Professor Lu Jianxi, only I want to send her to Antarctica to play with penguins. Hey! What are you looking at me doing? Zhu Huntang turned around and pouted at Qinyan, pointing at the roasted pigtail and wanting one. Qinyan often eats pigtails. Zhu Huntang is not averse to this stuff and doesn't think it's very delicious, but the old man's roasted ones should be good. Yan Hui helped take it. This little girl always has a temperament that makes people regard her as the center of things, consciously or unconsciously. When she instructs and controls others, she is so natural and makes people want to pamper her. After dinner, we formally chatted about the Public Welfare Fund for a while. Zhu Huntang handed over the specific affairs to Jin Xiaomei and Qinyan. Yan Hui was responsible for submitting the first-level review opinions. In fact, he had great power to decide the funds. Approval. After all, it is impossible for Qinyan to know much about the local projects and applicants. After chatting for a while, you could hear the roar of a large helicopter outside the window. It was Zhu Huntang's helicopter that landed on the viewing platform. Zhu Huntang took everyone there to play together. Professor Lu Jianxi did not take her plane to leave, but stayed here. After recovering into Lu Chang'an, he walked home by himself. It was already very late at this time, and there were fewer pedestrians on the street in front of the community at night. Lu Chang'an put his hands in his pockets, sang songs in front of him, jumped up and down, and happily returned with a huge vending machine on his back. Shang Guandandan from home bumped into him. I would like to recommend my new book. My ex-boyfriend said he came back from cultivating immortality. Everyone criticized it, but it has been published and Xiahua has to write it down. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 982. Shang Guandandan's skirt was kicked up by her little feet, revealing two small bells hanging from embroidered pink balls on her insteps. The crisp sound mixed with her song, full of innocence and joy. But the sound suddenly stopped, the happiness on the small face disappeared instantly, and the big eyes flashed with uncertainty, and the vending machine bent the Queen Mother's young spine like the huge pressure of life. Shang Guandandan opened his mouth slightly, looked to the left, then to the right, and then stood up straight stiffly. After thinking about it, Shang Guandandan closed her eyes. When she opened them again, it was as if she had practiced some kind of celestial eye technique. There was only the white of her eyes left. Lu Chang'an was startled by her. He put his hands in his pockets and kicked his heels, jumping 3 steps back. Feeling that it was not very safe, Shang Guandandan put down the vending machine, then took out a mulberry leaf from his sleeve pocket and placed it on her forehead, immediately covering his face. The invisibility technique was activated, so he couldn't see the Queen Mother, and the Queen Mother didn't see him either. Shang Guandandan carried the vending machine again, as if it had paused, and pressed the start button again. The scene continued to play, and she sang songs and jumped up and down, and continued to carry the big guy home. Lu Chang'an stood there and watched her finish her performance, then touched his neck. Sure enough, in the entire Zhou Fenglai sword sect, the most weird and abnormal thing was Shang Guandandan. Others have abnormal thinking, incorrect outlook on life, or abnormal brains to choose from, but Shang Guandandan is abnormal in all of them. Lu Chang'an remembered that he had once rolled his eyes to scare Hans His suitor Wu Fan, but it was just a little game between normal humans. Shang Guandandan rolled his eyes, but it made Lu Chang'an think for a moment that she was about to show her original shape and transform. So be a little wary. Looking at the city that was gradually shrouded in smog and light pollution, Lu Chang'an couldn't help but think that the myths and legends of the past, where monsters had strange backgrounds, all took place in deep mountains and old forests, in the wilderness, and in ruined temples. But now there are real monsters, and they must be breeding in the city. A prosperous place. A prosperous place is always accompanied by negative energy such as desire, corruption, darkness, etc. Aren't they the nourishment for monsters and monsters? No wonder those alien beasts flock to the county sand one after another. Some of the alien beasts, represented by Zhu and I, also like to hang out in the bar street. After all, Shang Guandandan is a big monster with an old school style who is clean and pure. What people always love most is coffins. When they see a broken coffin in the wild, they will feel close to it and want to go in and lie down. It's good to not forget your original intention. Lu Chang'an walked to the barbecue stall and ordered 3 large portions of grilled squid. After he finished thinking about the behavior of demons and monsters in the new era with the development of society, the grilled squid was ready. 300. I've given you a small change, handsome boy. The snacks from the online store, barbecued squid, cost 20 yuan a pound. Brother, give it a try. If you finish it and think it's not worth 300, then you can pay as much as you want and I'll give you change. As you say, then I won't negotiate the price. Seeing that the boss is so confident and Lu Chang'an is also a generous person, why should he negotiate the price? Taking a large box of barbecue squid home, Lu Chang'an tasted one first. Sure enough, it was not comparable to the spicy barbecue squid from online stores. It was crispy, tender, and juicy. When you bite it lightly, it feels like the juice is so refreshing that the whole mouth is enjoying it. The baby squid in the online store is dry and woody. It can't be compared with the freshly grilled squid. Especially since the boss chopped the squid tentacles and added some butter to it. It tastes great. No wonder they are so confident in selling it for such a high price. He brought the barbecued squid home and was about to invite the big ones and the small ones to have barbecue. He saw a vending machine that took up a lot of space in the center of his small living room. Shangguandandan was surrounded by the vending machine that could not be started even if it was plugged in. The vending machine was spinning around, with Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong making suggestions. "You don't know anything, why are you coming up with such blind ideas?" Lu Chang'an passed by them quietly and called the mother and daughter over for barbecue. Zhou Shuling is really enthusiastic and is not attracted by the barbecue, but Zhou Dongdong is like a disconnected Bluetooth accessory that is automatically connected to another signal source. "Brother Chang'an, do you want me to guard Sister Dandan's canteen by myself?" Zhou Dongdong stared at Squidward, still worried about Shangguandandan enthusiastically. "No need, don't think about it, go to school honestly." Lu Chang'an bluntly rejected Zhou Dongdong's hope. But he also knew that Zhou Dongdong, a child, had perseverance in certain things. For example, she once wanted to ride a dog to school. During that period, Zhou Shuling had to chase her off the dog every day before she could walk on her own. School. Zhou Dongdong made a sound, but did not indicate that he accepted the reality or decided to persevere. He just ate the squid on his own. In short, this was the most important thing. Shangguandandan felt dizzy as he walked around the vending machine. He fumbled around in the vending machine to no avail. Finally, he staggered to the electric heating table and started eating squid while sobbing. "Chang'an, please help me think of a solution," Zhou Shuling said distressedly. When a cute little girl like Shangguandandan cried, Lu Chang'an could only turn a blind eye, but Zhou Shuling couldn't. "I can't even repair a drone." Lu Chang'an shook his head. If he was asked to do the traditional 72 professions, he would be the top pick in each of them. But facing the gadgets of the new era, with his current skills, technical reserves and knowledge reserves, really can't do much. He is closer to modern skills, that is, repairing cars, driving cars, maintaining cars, playing with cars, debugging, maintaining and improving cars. Shangguandandan had stopped sobbing and looked at Lu Chang'an with squinted eyes. When he said no, he started sobbing again and reached out to take the owl and hold him in his arms. "Today, I walked for a long time today, I just found this canteen and spent a lot of money to buy it, how could it not be used?" Shangguandandan had tears in his eyes, shoulders hunched, and squid in his mouth. The baby was full, so he stopped talking and swallowed calmly. It actually said it was a canteen. It seemed that Zhou Dongdong was infected. Lu Chang'an was stared at by Zhou Shuling and Shangguandandan. He sighed and got up to look at the vending machine. "Where did you buy it?" Lu Chang'an observed it for a while, then found the snail buckle and other places to open it, and found nothing wrong with it. He did notice that this thing was very new, but there were scratches, peeling paint, and bumps. The place is rather suspicious. "Scrap, waste collection station." Shangguandandan stopped stuffing squid into her mouth so she could reply. After all, her canteen was more important, as it was related to Shangguandandan's career and future plans. He actually went to the scrap collection station. Lu Chang'an looked at the nameplate logo inside the vending machine, and then said to Shangguandandan, "You are probably stolen goods. Someone stole the new machine and sold it to the scrap recycling station. The scrap station, and I'll sell it to you, your clever queen mother." Shangguandandan tilted her head to look at him. What does this stolen goods have to do with her, the queen mother, who wanted to open a canteen and make money by staying at home every day? Recommend a new book from a friend. Author, former rice noodle shop owner. Book title, My Ex-Boyfriend Said He Came Back from Cultivating Immortality. Introduction, my sister looks exactly like my ex-boyfriend when they were young. What are the possibilities? It must be a coincidence. Click the link below to collect. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 983. After walking the farthest distance today, the skin on her little feet must have been scratched, and she might even have injured the Queen Mother's fragile bones. Her small body was under tremendous pressure, making it difficult to straighten her waist like a mountaineer. Along the way, he almost encountered Lu Chang'an, who saw his embarrassed figure. Fortunately, he used his invisibility technique to avoid him, and then he successfully took the vending machine home and set up a canteen. Shang Guandandan had already made up his mind. He would guard the canteen during the day, and leave it to Zhou Dongdong in the morning and after school. The canteen operating in 2 shifts looked formal and business was good. Unexpectedly, Shang Guandandan felt sad while eating the delicious barbecued squid. How many times do you want to beat it? Zhou Shuling, who also ate 3 barbecued squid, continued to come over to give advice. You go ahead and pound it. Lu Chang'an squatted on the ground and looked up at his little mother, who had better smoothen the development of her breasts and buttocks. The teasing Zhou Shuling could still be seen in his calm expression, and she pouted aggrievedly. If a household appliance or something is broken, it can be given a hammer. Just give it this time often and it will be fine. Isn't there a phone number for the manufacturer here? Call them and ask someone to repair it. We can pay more. Zhou Shuling looked at Shang Guandandan with moist eyes and felt very distressed. If it was Zhou Dongdong who was crying loudly, it would be nothing, but Zhou Shuling's soft heart couldn't bear to make a lovely girl like Shang Guandandan so sad. Lu Chang'an stood up, touched Zhou Shuling's head, then pointed at the barbecued squid and asked her to eat. This vending machine may be stolen goods. Call the manufacturer to send someone to repair it. It is better to call the police directly. It's actually okay to buy stolen goods, and you can still call the manufacturer to repair it, but letting a powerless ordinary citizen like yourself make such a call will cause more trouble for no reason. So Lu Chang'an sent a message to Qin Yan'an that the respected Queen Mother had brought back a vending machine and needed maintenance services from the manufacturer. Hearing that it was Shang Guandandan's matter, Qin Yan'an naturally obliged. She was enjoying the services of Zhuhantang's spa technicians at Beilong Center with Yan Hui. The technical level was very good, but after all, it didn't make people want to moan. It's incomparable to Professor Liu's method. Qin Yan'an asked for the manufacturer's address, and then called Secretary Long, who happened to know the owner of that manufacturer. An hour later, a neatly dressed Qin Yan'an waited for the factory's technical director at the gate of the community. He hurried to the door with 2 technicians. Seeing the vending machine, the technical director hesitated. Isn't this the batch of products that was recently lost in the factory? This family, the technical director looked at a young woman, a girl, and a child standing in a row next to him with expectant faces, and then glanced at the extremely beautiful Miss Jean and the young man holding her arm. And then began to work on repairs. The boss said that this was a call personally made by the first secretary of Shonen. The only people who can let this person call personally to handle such a small personal matter are the family members of the boss in Shonen, because no one else is qualified or unwilling to work in this kind of situation. Use kindness in small things. The vending machine was quickly repaired. In fact, there were only factory locks and boot procedures that needed to be operated, and there were no other software or hardware problems. He helped Shang Guandandan install the management system on his mobile phone, and then sent an electronic version of how to use it. Explain to her. If you have any questions, just call me directly. I am Xiao Zhang. I am always at your service. The technical director handed Shang Guandandan his business card with both hands. He didn't give Qin Yan'an a business card, thinking that this woman with outstanding temperament was the person who could drive Secretary Long to make a phone call. His surname was Qin. If he thought about the surname of the boss in southern Hunan, he would know who he was. Xiao Zhang didn't think so. I am qualified to deliver a business card to this person. Okay, Xiaozhang Shangguan Dandan had already burst into tears and smiled. He reached out to take it, then took out a planet cup from his sleeve pocket and handed it to Xiaozhang. Thank you for your hard work. Xiaozhang was stunned for a moment. He called himself Xiaozhang, but he was almost 40 years old. Most people called him Mr. Zhang or Old Zhang. This little girl gave him a planet cup. It's quite delicious. Try it, Qinyan said. Thank you, I'll go first. Xiaozhang took the planet cup, nodded with a smile, packed up the tools, and went downstairs with the two mechanics. Qinyan followed him out and gave red envelopes to the three of them. It was so late at night that they couldn't let anyone go in vain. Mr. Zhang accepted it after saying a few polite words. People are very particular about people, and you have to accept it. If you don't accept it, you will owe others a favor. After looking at the red envelope, the three of them were very satisfied with the amount, even a little overjoyed, and then they all sighed with emotion. With this money, you can buy some new vending machines and stack blocks to play with. Why did the whole machine come back as stolen goods? Maybe this is a rich person. If we can understand their thinking, then we still have to spend most of the night being ordered to repair this thing. I have already become my own boss. Qinyan went upstairs again and couldn't help but smile when he saw Shangguan Dandan and Zhou Dongdong groping around the charged and activated vending machine. Miss Jean is really powerful. If it were me, I would just find a home appliance repairman to come and take a look, Zhou Shuling complimented. She originally wanted to say, "It's late at night, please excuse me," but suddenly she felt that Miss Jean might not be happy if she said that. No matter how careless and ignorant a woman is, she is always sensitive to some things. Zhou Shuling has felt several times that Miss Jean is not very happy with Zhou Shuling in some aspects, or with certain aspects of Zhou Shuling's tone of voice, angle, etc. Sister Zhou won the award. In fact, home appliance repairers may also do repairs. I just think that the people who find the manufacturers may be more professional and will not delay Dandan's affairs. Qinyan smiled, not knowing what was going on, and said to Yan Hui, they get along very well, but it is not easy to be naturally harmonious and friendly with Zhou Shuling, who actually feels good to her. Is it because Zhou Shuling also has the queen seal sent by Dandan? In general, only myself and Zhou Shuling have this jade seal at present, so it's no wonder that I care more about Zhou Shuling. Looking at the Antarctic guy, Qinyan didn't take it seriously at all, and laughed off Zhu Huntang's stupid behavior of trying to give Su Mei a chance to return. Anyway, the harder Zhu Huntang worked, the more counterproductive it became. Let's have some barbecued squid again. Lu Chang'an bought it. It's quite delicious. Zhou Shuling continued to entertain the guests warmly. Qinyan sighed slightly. This is what is really unpleasant about Zhou Shuling. My brother bought this, and I am using you to greet me? Are you really his little wife? Maybe Zhou Shuling didn't actually mean this, but the current situation is not an exaggeration to say that the heroes are divided. Qinyan had to see the situation clearly and recruit a group of people to attack others. Zhou Shuling vaguely classified her brother's house, under the sycamore tree, and the utility room as the female protagonist within her sphere of influence. Qinyan felt that it was not suitable to win over her. The strong always win over the weak. They will only instinctively fight against another strong person. Once they want to cooperate, they will show weakness and compromise. I don't dare to eat too much at night. If I eat a squid baby, the calories will explode. I'm afraid that when I wake up tomorrow, I will have an extra ring of meat on my waist. Qinyan stretched, and the short shirt inside the little dress was pushed up, revealing the slender and soft body. Her waist was like a snake that had just shed its skin, winding, flexible and glowing with moisture. Zhou Shuling regretted it a bit. Eating one baby squid would cause an explosion of calories. How many should I eat? Mom, if you eat 8, you will have 8 rings of flesh on your waist, right? As a first-grade child, the resourceful and brave Zhou Dongdong accurately calculated the number of rings of flesh on Zhou Shuling's waist. How could I eat 8? Zhou Shuling's cheeks grew hot. She grabbed Zhou Dongdong and carried her upstairs. You still eat, you know how to eat all day long. I still want to eat. You have grown so much because you have grown so many rings. When you fight with Brother Chang'an at night, you will be more powerful. After hearing her nonsense, Zhou Shuling hurriedly covered her mouth, hit the child, and went upstairs in a panic. Zhou Dongdong felt aggrieved. Why did other children usually get praise and praise for helping adults calculate the correct amount, but he only got beaten? Fight. Qin Yinan turned his head and looked at the two people sitting together in confusion as if they were watching the show with gusto. Children talk about parents fighting. It's that kind of thing most of the time, right? Haha, children sometimes see their parents making little people and often think it's a fight. Lu Chang'an was afraid that his sister wouldn't know, so he spread the knowledge. Ah! Dongdong heard it from Songdazi, another clever and brave child. Dongdong also hopes that her brother Chang'an and his mother will fight, not really. Shangguan Dandan explained implicitly. Conflicts between daughters-in-law are conducive to consolidating the authority and central position of the Queen Mother, but they must be limited to an appropriate level, and they cannot be allowed to develop into a state where Hulielu is worth millions, and revenge is as close as a stone's throw away. The moth's brain is not working well, which will only deepen the conflict. The Queen Mother must worry about explaining those misunderstandings clearly. That's good, Qin Yinan breathed a sigh of relief. It really was a fight. Zhou Shuling had the advantage of the geographical location. Couldn't it be declared that she was the main palace, and the one on the top of Lushan Mountain was completely an outer chamber? This little daughter-in-law is really a formidable rival, and she really needs to have children. Qin Yinan is very sure that if Zhou Shuling doesn't have the bonus point of Zhou Dongdong, she will be a passerby. Wasn't it because of Zhu Huntang that Su Mei was able to survive? Otherwise, my brother would not remember her even though she was far away in Antarctica. After all, men always like warmth. With Qin Yinan's heart telling him what temperature is, the coldness of Antarctica would freeze all extra emotions and thoughts. The child's help was really great. Zhu Huntang's repeated attempts to commit suicide were simply losing points infinitely, which prevented Su Mei's bond from being completely cleared. Qin Yinan caressed her belly, secretly glanced at Shangguan Dandan, and took advantage of the opportunity. I have made another meritorious service today. I will ask Dandan for some advice later. My ex-boyfriend said he came back after cultivating immortality, the latest chapter of the new book, received rave reviews. Everyone praised Xiahua for his beautiful writing, touching people's hearts, and his unique taste. Click the link below to save it, thank you. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 984. Qin Yinan sat down with her waist in her arms. Even though she was pregnant, her demeanor was still elegant and charming. He casually took off his coat and sat down, immediately raising the average number of visible busts in the living room by several levels. She didn't come to her brother's house many times, but except for the electric radiator, she basically bought all the other appliances. Hey, the TV seems a little different. Maybe Dandan Cutie took one away and her brother bought a new one. Return. Her cell phone rang, Qin Yinan picked it up, and Zhu Huntang's angry voice came immediately. How long will it take for you to come back? I'm going to sleep. You sleep on your own, annoying, not a baby. I became a baby sheep today, so I still have some baby side effects, and I need the warmth of Nina to be able to sleep. Ask Zhongqing to sleep with you. After saying that, Qin Yinan hung up the phone. Lu Chang'an listened to the general idea and smiled reluctantly to show that he didn't have any unnecessary emotions. Do you think that now that Zhu Huntang has learned how to transform, would she want to try to make herself bigger? Qin Yinan asked curiously, pointing to her chest. Zhu Huntang always claims that she is the most beautiful and lovely girl in the world and is perfect, but in fact she has a very strong obsession with breasts. She must have tried it, but she just didn't succeed, Lu Chang'an said doubtfully. Zhu Huntang only likes to have her wishes come true or tell others to realize her wishes. For things that require her own efforts, even if they are very strong wishes, and rarely takes action. For example, when she tried to control her explosive power, she felt that she had tried her best after 10 times. When trying to make her breasts bigger, she probably just yelled big, 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 and the like. If she didn't succeed immediately, she would give up. There was obviously no blood relationship, but there was some strange inheritance. Lu Chang'an glanced at Shang Guandandan, the representative of the best sect. Shang Guandandan was staring at her vending machine. It was the core of the canteen and had just been repaired. Shang Guandandan didn't dare to unplug it for the time being and carried it downstairs. She decided not to unplug the plug today and left it in Lu Chang'an's living room. But with Lu Chang'an as a naughty child, Shang Guandandan was not very relieved, so she had to sit next to the electric heating table to sleep at night, keeping watch over the automatic just a vending machine. Feeling Lu Chang'an looking at him, Shang Guandandan didn't quite understand his look, but he still reached out to hold Owl in his arms and touched him as a warning. Xiao Tang is still very young. Don't be too harsh on her. Shang Guandandan is still very satisfied and fond of Zhu Huntang. I will teach her the invisibility technique with Dong Dong tomorrow. Invisibility. Qin Yan'an did not doubt whether Shang Guandandan knew the invisibility technique at all, but was a little surprised. At the same time, he felt that when Zhu Huntang learned the invisibility technique, everyone would understand the profound meaning of the idiom "the chicken and the dog are restless." Lu Chang'an waved his hand, signaling Qin Yan'an not to pay attention to this issue. He had already thought of Shang Guandandan with Zhu Huntang and Zhou Dongdong, and the three of them had a mulberry leaf on their faces. At this time, Zhou Dongdong, who was only wearing a set of thermal underwear, came down from upstairs, grabbed a barbecued squid and stuffed it into his mouth. I just ate a little bit, and my mother took me away. I will definitely be too hungry to sleep at night, so I have to eat a few more. Zhou Dongdong was a little cold, so he climbed into Lu Chang'an's arms and sat down. He said while eating, "You go ahead and eat. No matter how much you eat, you will still have a ring of meat around your waist." Lu Chang'an pulled the edge of the thermal blanket to cover her body. "Why? Mom can grow 8 rings of flesh, but I want to grow more," Zhou Dongdong said unconvinced. "Because thin people gain weight in circles and gradually become a sphere. You have reached the limit and completely become a sphere, and the shape is fixed," Lu Chang'an explained. Zhou Dongdong turned to look at him. He didn't understand, but he didn't care much. After all, growing 8 rings of meat was not as important as eating a lot of barbecued squid. But Zhou Dongdong had just eaten 4, and Zhou Shuling rushed down and drove Zhou Dongdong to sleep with a bamboo stick. "Why is this squid so small? Is it missing a few pounds?" Zhou Shuling discovered this problem shrewdly and ate the very small squid. It was very small and would definitely not make Zhou Shuling grow a ring of flesh. "So it's okay to eat it? If you want to eat, feel free to eat. Don't worry about gaining weight." Lu Chang'an looked amused. He stood up and took a small bowl with some squid and handed it to Zhou Shuling. "Take it and eat it, so that you two won't worry about food and then couldn't sleep." "I don't have any." Zhou Shuling tugged at the hem of her warm clothes and glanced at Qin Yan'an with some embarrassment. She noticed that this rare visitor who didn't often appear at home had a mocking and teasing look on her face, so she took it over and explained. I'll take it up. The main reason is that Zhou Dongdong will wake up hungry if she doesn't have enough to eat." Go, Lu Chang'an patted her soft shoulder. Zhou Shuling's whole body felt a little soft, and it felt particularly good. Seeing Zhou Shuling walk out again, Qin Yan'an said with some emotion, "Zhou Shuling has a really good figure. After a winter, there is not much fat on her waist." When the weather gets warmer, she can wear beautiful clothes again. Girls often don't mind growing a little fat on their bodies in winter. They can only worry about it when the weather gets warmer and quickly find ways to lose weight. Yaya has a good figure too. Let's sleep here tonight. After Shangguan Dandan finished speaking, he recited a poem. Sichuan brocade lichen is, not long, cricket, grey wolf, golden thread. She couldn't finish reading because Lu Chang'an covered her mouth just after she read the words Sichuan brocade lichen. Shangguan Dandan was reading poems in front of Lu Chang'an. The idiom Lu Men read poems is similar to describe it. When Shangguan Dandan opened his mouth, Lu Chang'an knew that what she was thinking of was Lu Yang's butterfly love flower phoenix. Kaiwu. Sichuan brocade lichen silk walking barrier, winding corridors, quiet night leisurely search. The jade carvings are on the crescent moon. Zhu Fei looked at each other with half-hidden eyes. The rotating warm fumigation furnace warms the tent. The beautiful branches of yushu lie beside each other. The mandarin duck embroidery was turned into red waves. The first part of this poem is okay, but Yuan Yang embroidery was turned into a red wave can be said to be very obvious. Shangguan Dandan stayed in Qinyanan. Who else here could be caught up in the red wave with her? Of course Lu Chang'an couldn't let her talk nonsense and make the atmosphere very awkward. What are you doing? Bullying Dandan, Qinyanan didn't know why. After all, he was not Shangguan Dandan's baby like Lu Chang'an. Without that kind of tacit understanding, how could he guess the following words from the 4 words Shangguan Dandan opened his mouth? Lu Chang'an hugged Shangguan Dandan and covered half of his face. Shangguan Dandan's face was small, and only his eyes were moving. She didn't resist. She finished reading the poem vaguely and unclearly, then picked up the thermos and wanted to drink water, but her mouth was covered and it almost fell into his hand, so she had to give up drinking and took the water. Touching the thermos pot means being unfilial. You should go back and sleep with Zhu Huntang first, so that Zhu Huntang will not have another excuse tomorrow for not sleeping well and not going to school, Lu Chang'an said to Qinyanan. I'll stay with Dandan tonight. Qinyanan has other things to do, so there's no need to pay attention to Zhu Huntang's big baby. The baby in her belly is in urgent need of help growing up. Stop reciting poems, Lu Chang'an warned Shangguan Dandan carefully, and then slowly let go of her mouth. After taking a look at the palm of his hand, he saw that she had bitten his teeth again and it was still stained with saliva. Lu Chang'an didn't dislike it very much, so he wiped his hands and didn't care anymore. Why aren't you allowed to read poems in silence? Qinyanan still stood on the Queen Mother's side and helped to speak. She usually recites poetry to stir up trouble, ridicule, and laugh at others. She never uses it seriously. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Isn't this normal? The ancients often wrote poems for these purposes. For example, the famous line of pear blossoms crushing begonias is Sushi's joke on others. 18-year-old bride, pale hair, and red makeup. Mandarin ducks under quilt on a double night, a pear tree weighs down the begonias, Qinyanan said with a slight blush on her cheeks. If you want to be sexy, you have to be these educated people. Most intellectuals are quite interesting as long as they don't govern the country and guide people's livelihood. Giggle. Shangguan laughed 3 times, and then drank water. Lu Chang'an glared at Shangguan Dandan. He knew that she was smiling like this because he was trying to stop her from pronouncing Mandarin ducks embroidered in red waves, but Qinyanan still read out Mandarin ducks embroidered in pairs for a double night, which was almost the same. Okay, then I'll clean up the guest room. Lu Chang'an stood up and was about to go to bed. No, I'll stay with Dandan tonight. Dandan, can I sleep with you? Qinyanan sat down at Lu Chang'an's seat, holding Shangguan Dandan's arm and said. I'm going to sit here tonight and look at my canteen. It's okay if you accompany me. Shangguan Dandan nodded solemnly. In the past, if there were any large-scale events in the harem that required the Queen Mother to attend, they would always be accompanied by concubines. Xiahua, together with the protagonist and many supporting characters under the sycamore tree, wishes everyone a happy new year. Wish you good luck and good fortune. Get your monthly pass. Thank you. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 985. After Lu Chang'an went to wash up, he saw Qin Yan'an still sitting on the sofa with Shang Guandandan, talking about matters to be paid attention to during pregnancy, but did not interrupt. After thinking about it, he went to clean up the guest room. If Qin Yan'an didn't have the energy and perseverance to accompany Shang Guandandan to stare at the vending machine, he could go to sleep and rest. Alas, he always unconsciously thought that Qin Yan'an needed more attention. Being played by women, he accepted from the bottom of his heart that she was a pregnant woman who deserved to be taken care of carefully. Remember to turn off the TV before going to bed, Lu Chang'an said to Shang Guandandan. In addition to always turning off the electric heating table, Shang Guandandan also often watched the TV. He didn't know where he was, but the TV was still on. I want to watch it all night. Shang Guandandan's main task tonight is to guard the vending machine, but he can't just stare at it all the time. He has to watch TV to pass the time. After a while, he may want to play with his small TV called a computer, teach Qin Yan'an how to play games, and then post on moments to let other daughters-in-law know that the Queen Mother not only needs someone to accompany her when playing cards, but also needs someone to accompany her to play games all night long. Look, Lu Chang'an waved his hand, glanced at his sister again, and went back to the room to sleep. Qin Yan'an easily picked up her coat and put it on again. After midnight, the temperature dropped. Sitting next to the electric heating table made it easier to catch a cold. Pregnant women must always be careful not to catch a cold or have a fever. Medication can easily affect the healthy development of the fetus, so she must carry it. Although the thing in her belly is a gestational sac, it is also a critical period. After a long pregnancy, a small problem may turn into a big problem, which is worse than that of an ordinary fetus. More serious. It's not that because my brother went to bed, there was no need for me to show off my figure. Dandan, can he hear us talking when he is sleeping? Qin Yan'an asked softly. Shang Guandandan thought for a while, then took Zhou Dongdong's eraser and threw it towards the bedroom door. Qin Yan'an and Shang Guandandan looked at the door together. The door opened, and Lu Chang'an poked his head out suspiciously. What are you doing? He hasn't fallen asleep yet. Let's talk quietly when he falls asleep, Shang Guandandan said with a frown. Sometimes the children at home are like this. They would rather listen to the sound of the TV than sleep while lying in bed. Zhou Dongdong upstairs and Lu Chang'an downstairs were all like this, which made the two parents Shang Guandandan and Zhou Shuling very worried. Lu Chang'an picked up the eraser and threw it at Shang Guandandan. A piece of Shang Guandandan's hair tied up the eraser. Lu Chang'an didn't have to hit her and closed the door forcefully. Qin Yan'an was a little envious of Shang Guandandan's ability. If he had such hair, he would definitely use it to make his hair more beautiful. As for tying up his brother so that he could not move so that it would be convenient for Qin Yan'an to fend for himself, it was just a casual thought. It would not be true. So excessive. Which elegant and reserved woman can do such a thing? Su Mei is the only one who would seek death like this. Qin Yan'an and Shang Guandandan watched TV for a while and then went to actually operate the vending machine. Qin Yan'an first filled the vending machine with Shang Guandandan's candies, scanned the code to buy them all, then put back the candies pushed out by the vending machine, and then reminded Shang Guandandan to check the payment receipt bound to the vending machine. Account. I made money. Shang Guandandan looked at the newly added balance in his account happily. The Queen Mother is really capable and she really made money. Over time, not only will the capital be recovered, but the income of the rice noodle shop will be comparable to that of the rice noodle shop. Presumably the Queen Mother's family status will also flourish, and she will once again become an important person in control of the harem's finances. Yaya is really a good housekeeper. Shang Guandandan waved with satisfaction and asked Qinyanan to come over and touch her head. Lu Chang'an has fallen asleep. What do you want to say? Dan, I remember, you were also present when I first discovered that I had a gestational sac in my belly. Qinyanan recalled this important moment in her life, and she still remembers the complicated mood at that time. Mother is not doubtful, and your status is stable. Shang Guan nodded. Even Lu Chang'an's view is the same. Don't look at his mouth, beep 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 beep, non-stop, but I am still full of expectations and take it very seriously. Really, Qinyanan was also pleased with herself, holding her mother-in-law's arm and shaking her arms. Even though she thought so herself, it still felt particularly wonderful to have it confirmed by others, especially Shang Guandandan's personal verification. Don't worry. Our family is different from those ordinary families. We really have the throne to inherit, and the position of the head of the Zhu Fenglai sword sect to inherit. Don't think that this kind of thing is not popular in this era, but we can wait. If the ugly country is divided, it's okay for us to create a country for fun. As the Queen Mother, Shang Guandandan still likes to care about current affairs, as long as she doesn't have her favorite mother-in-law and daughter-in-law ethics dramas, fairy idol dramas, zombie movies and TV series, comedy variety shows, etc., or she doesn't watch cartoons like Animal World with Joe Dongdong. Yes, she will watch international news and so on. On the other side of the ocean, in countries like the Xiongnu during the Han Dynasty, we have also heard about it. Don't argue or compete with Xiao Tang. She likes the position of the leader of the Zhu Fenglai sword sect, so let her take it. She can't want everything, and the rest will be the only one left. Shang Guandandan said earnestly. It is also necessary to keep the huge family and complicated relatives in harmony without disputes. Although it is a bit tiring, the Queen Mother is willing to work hard and do her best. Do you know the relationship between Zhu Huntang and my brother? Qinyanan tried his best to lower his voice and said, I thought my brother wouldn't tell you about this, and it's impossible for you to have any communication with Sumei. Look at your little thoughts, are you still afraid that Xiao Tang will lose my favor? Shang Guandandan scratched Qinyanan's nose. Qinyanan blushed a little, but it sounded like Shang Guandandan didn't mind. That's right, the real master of the harem, the Queen Mother. What thoughts do women have that she hasn't seen? There's no need for him to say it. I didn't pay attention at first, but slowly as Xiao Tang awakened, I discovered it. Xiao Tang can turn into a sheep now, and sooner or later he will turn into a dragon, Shang Guandandan said with confidence. Even if the transformed dragon may not be so upright, may be a little weird, and may even open its mouth and bleed, becoming a bleeding dragon, it is still a dragon. I hope that even the poor can turn into dragons. Zhu Huntang's series of excellent performances today really made Qinyanan feel a sense of crisis. Even though Zhu Huntang was wearing diapers and wagging her tail at Lu Chang'an again today, smashing the kitchen door, destroying the chopped tune, and finally looking like a confused sheep child against the background of Yan Qingcheng, in fact she was being pampered. Very favored. It can be said that as long as Zhu Huntang does not commit suicide, she will control heaven and earth, and her brother will be able to make up for her. After all, as long as a person behaves hopelessly for a long time, people will be surprised if one day she improves even a centimeter. For Zhu Huntang, who has been scoring 0 points for a long time, if she improves by 1 point, her brother will point to her 1-point paper with tears of joy and post on a circle of friends, look, my family has improved. She could transform into a sheep, and she could suddenly burst out with strength. At that time, her brother tried his best to mention it disapprovingly, but he still couldn't hide the old father's show-off. What do you want me to do? Shang Guandandan understood the elegant meaning after hearing the song. He looked at his vending machine. In the future, the operation of the canteen and the maintenance of the equipment will still need the support of his daughter-in-law. Of course, Shang Guandandan will reciprocate favors. Is there any way to let Jianqian be born earlier? Qin Yan'an could only ask Shang Guandandan for help. Su Mei was pregnant for 180 years before giving birth to Zhu Huntang. This was because Su Mei had used the power of such a huge business and technology empire, coupled with the Tesla of ancient civilizations and all the vampires. It took so long. Qin Yan'an didn't want to wait 180 years, her feelings about a long time had not yet formed the calm, peaceful and comfortable mentality of an extraordinary creature. It would be easy to just give birth to a baby with average abilities, or a baby that requires a lot of acquired resources to improve individual abilities, but is that what you need? Shang Guandandan helped Qin Yan'an analyze it calmly and professionally. This is not a trivial matter, nor is it an errand that can be done casually. It is related to the well-being of future generations and the prosperity of the entire family. Shang Guandandan must be serious. Qin Yan'an quickly shook his head. That's right. Let's take a closer look at this matter and do an experiment tonight. It can speed up the birth of a young lady, but it doesn't happen overnight. You have to be patient. Do you have the patience? Shang Guandandan touched Qin Yan'an's abdomen and said. Have. Okay, let's go downstairs first. Ah, okay, but your vending machine, don't you want to watch your canteen? Carry it down. I'm afraid that when Lu Chang'an gets up in the middle of the night and sees that I'm not here, he will do some damage. Even if he doesn't do any damage, he will laugh at me and say some nonsense the next day. No, I can do it alone. I'm very strong. Lu Chang'an used to say that I'm so powerful that I can't do anything in the world. Qin Yan'an took the lead bravely. For the sake of the baby, it doesn't matter if he does some physical work. When Lu Chang'an woke up in the morning, he felt refreshed, warm and comfortable all over. It was the kind of pleasant and relaxing state after staying in an warm room for a night. He squinted his eyes and was intoxicated for a moment, then reached out and grabbed his claws to the side. He didn't touch anyone, so he opened his eyes. He was only in his own bedroom, not some warm and soft jade boudoir. What happened? Only then did Lu Chang'an recall that he seemed to have had a dream last night. The scenes in the dream were a bit chaotic and colorful, but there was no need to carefully recall the details and characters. But how can the feeling of a dream make the body feel so real? Lu Chang'an carefully checked his body and bed. He had indeed been lying in bed all night. There was no possibility that someone else had done anything to him. He didn't know anything about it. It was just a dream. Lu Chang'an didn't think much about it. He put on his clothes and pants, opened the door and shouted, Shang Guandandan. The Queen Mother, who was thrifty and worked hard to live a smart life, did not turn off the TV or the electric radiator. I would like to recommend a new book to everyone. My ex-boyfriend said he came back from cultivating immortality. After reading the latest chapter, everyone said that he was a small person and that he was worthy of being the owner of a rice noodle shop. All kinds of requests. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 986. Lu Chang'an kicked off his sandals and walked downstairs. Fog poured into the corridor, and the lights under the awning were on, dimly. 3 or 2 dark green sycamore leaves stretch out, with transparent water droplets condensed on the edges, which is really beautiful. Listening to the sound, he knew that Shang Guandandan was once again teaching others her life skills that showed that she was trying to live a smart life. Is the water meter still turning? Shang Guandandan asked inside the room, sticking his head next to the faucet outside the door. It's not turning. Qin Yan'an, who is the #1 talent in the horse riding industry and is definitely capable of winning the Li Hongfang Cup contest, shouted loudly while staring at the water meter inside. She came out after shouting and said to Shang Guandandan with admiration, I will also set up the water collection system like this when I go home. I can save a lot of water every day when I get tired. Shang Guandandan took 2 steps with his head held high and nodded with satisfaction, not only to satisfy his own diligent and frugal housekeeping style, but also to satisfy Qinyanan that his son could be taught. Your home has a smart water meter, and it uses the hotel's pipes. The water fee is 80% more expensive than ordinary residence water. If you want to receive water like this, why not buy a house first and use ordinary residence water? Let's talk about it again. Lu Chang'an couldn't stand it. These 2 people got up earlier than Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong, so they started acting here. Is it because the spring quilt is too damp and not warm enough or comfortable enough? Ah! Qinyanan was playing with Shang Guandandan. He didn't expect his brother to get up right now. He glanced at him, turned away with a blush on his cheeks, and ignored his sarcasm. Lu Chang'an was suspicious. Why was he blushing when he saw your kind, gentle, upright brother without saying hello so early in the morning? He was probably plotting something against him with Shang Guandandan and was preparing to play his role. Lu Chang'an was a little alert, but he didn't pay much attention. He walked downstairs and looked at Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan stretched out his hand but didn't touch anything. Qinyanan quickly handed the thermos bottle to her. Holding the owl in his hands, Shang Guandandan immediately gained a lot of momentum. While touching the paint-off lid of the thermos pot, he looked at the moth with a majestic expression. According to the latest household registration management methods, I will give you a household registration. School will start in the second half of the year and send you to 9th grade. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and made up his mind. Although school teachers also have all kinds of naughty children that they can't deal with, sending them to school is a good idea after all. Shang Guandandan, like Zhu Huntang, has nothing to do all day long, and if they don't use up their energy in school, they will do things elsewhere. Isn't that necessary? Dandan has fully integrated into community life, and the school is not a place she is used to staying. Qinyanan helped Shang Guandandan speak. Now that Shang Guandandan asked her to go to the moon to catch the jade rabbit and roast it, Qinyanan would consult aerospace experts and then ask the Fenglai sword sect of Zhuzhu to reimburse the expenses. Lu Chang'an glanced at Qinyanan. His butt was crooked and he didn't want to sit next to his brother. Qinyanan blushed and turned away again, holding Shang Guandandan's hand and shaking it gently, looking around without meeting Lu Chang'an's eyes. I won't go to school. Shang Guandandan was not very scared. Anyway, he had already said it would happen in the second half of the year, so why worry about what would happen a few months later? He had to force her to go to school, so she would go back to the coffin and stay autistic for a long time. Maybe when she came out again, the school would have become a historical relic or something. Of course, this is just a last resort. Shang Guandandan still has many things he likes and wants to do every day. The worst case scenario is that I will take Zhou Dongdong to skip classes every day, play everywhere, and then go home after school. No one can control the lawless queen mother who doesn't want to go to school. With attention in mind, Shang Guandandan drank water calmly, touched his vending machine, and then returned to the room to prepare a fire. Qinyanan knew that Shang Guandandan was going to pick up the small stove, so he quickly followed to help. Lu Chang'an looked at her moving back. She was full and her breath was sweet, which could be called a beautiful sight in the world. It actually made the cool morning feel a little more seductive, like the spring breeze caressing her face. The huge vending machine was quite conspicuous. Lu Chang'an looked at the inside of the machine and saw that it was filled with goods. Then he looked at the prices on the display. There was a row of chocolates priced at 3,888 each. Lu Chang'an has little experience and has never seen such expensive products in a vending machine. Thinking about the consumption habits and levels of people in the community, he would only buy it from your vending machine if he is mentally ill. The other goods are also some snacks that Lu Chang'an has never seen before. Without reading the labels in various languages, Most people may have no idea what they are. There is no doubt that these are the things in the snack house given by Zhu Huntang. Apart from seeing her taking some out and eating them with Zhou Dongdong, I don't know where she hides the others. You must know that Zhu Huntang's snack house is larger than Lu Chang'an's apartment. Although it is not densely packed and crowded, there are still quite a lot of them, and they cannot fit in the utility room of Shang Guandandan's dwelling. Mostly it has something to do with the bronze coffin. Lu Chang'an was thinking. Shang Guandandan came out with a small stove, Qin Yan'an carried a kettle with a briquette, and Shang Guandandan started to boil water every day. Woo, woo, gilug gilug. Shang Guandandan imitated the sound of boiling a kettle, indicating that a new day had begun. After helping Shang Guandandan boil water, Qin Yan'an left first. She had to talk about something before Zhu Huntang sent Yan Hui away by helicopter, and she happened to have breakfast there. Why is there something wrong with Qin Yan'an? Lu Chang'an sat on the recliner, looking up at the sycamore leaves being touched by a breeze. The water droplets on the edge of the leaves jumped down, and he stretched out his fingers to catch them to prevent them from falling on him. The wind suddenly became stronger, and the condensed dew jumped away from the leaves and fell all over him. Huh, it feels like a light spring rain. Illiterate people may actively question whether the word Qian is a coinage and artificial. In fact, Qian is a polyphonic word. Sometimes it is pronounced as jian and used as a verb with the meanings of sputter, exterminate, and empty. Lu Chang'an touched his ears and wiped away the water droplets. In his ears, Shang Guandandan heard the clear clucking hen's cries when he saw this scene. There is nothing wrong with her, everything is normal, and she is growing steadily and healthily. Shang Guandandan looked forward with some longing. When he met Xiao Tang, she was already so old. Shang Guandandan didn't have to watch the baby grow up. From crying to be fed, to babbling, and then to the various stages of toddlerhood, a big part of the family happiness was missing. Ah, I have to make up for it. When Chunqiang is born, the Queen Mother will do her best to take care of her. Thinking about Xiao Tang, Chunqiang, and Dongdong playing together, and holding Owl and Swallow beside her to teach them all kinds of things, it is really aspirational, and Moth must also would love to see this. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with her. If there's anything wrong, it must have something to do with you, Lu Chang'an said with certainty. Woo! Woo-hoo! The kettle rang. Shang Guandandan imitated the cry, not hearing what he was saying, so he ignored it. Although this chapter is short, the writing level is high, and it is comfortable to read every word. It is worthy of a monthly vote. It would be better if you can go to the new book next door to support it. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 987. In fact, Qin Yan'an and Shang Guandandan joined forces, but Lu Chang'an was still fearless. At worst, they would be caught face to face and tied together, and their butts would be spanked here and there. Shang Guandandan filled the thermos pot with water, threw in the effervescent tablets, listened to the violent bubbles, and quickly tightened the pot lid, then walked behind Lu Chang'an, and quickly jumped to the sycamore branch while he was not looking. Sit on. Lu Chang'an looked back at her and didn't say anything like you don't have the strength, how did you jump up the tree? She can even use the invisibility technique, so what's the use of telling her these words? At this time, there was a sound of heavy objects rolling down the corridor. Zhou Dongdong came down from upstairs, rushed to the door of Lu Chang'an's house, put his toes against the door, squatted half squat with his other leg, pressed down, and raised his hands. Lift high. What are you doing? Lu Chang'an saw her movements while sitting on the recliner. Huang Huifeng's Kung Fu. Zhou Dongdong watched a Kung Fu movie starring a man named Li last night. It means one hand is raised and the other is facing forward, which means to come over. You are raising your hands to surrender. Lu Chang'an understood, it was the Huang Fihung signature created by the actor in the Once Upon a Time film series. Action. Zhou Dongdong pulled his hands together, but he didn't understand Lu Chang'an's meaning, so he stopped imitating it. He stood on the stairs and prepared to jump, and said to Lu Chang'an, "Brother Chang'an, do you believe that I dare to jump down from here?" "I don't believe it." Lu Chang'an glanced at the entire staircase and shook his head. Zhou Dongdong was stunned for a moment and asked loudly, "Don't you usually believe it?" "I don't believe it today." Zhou Dongdong shook his hands a few times, but gave up, proving that he dared to jump down. Zhou Dongdong is smart and brave, and is not a stupid child. Jumping like this will not prove that he is brave, he will only fall to the ground first, like the bad guy who was killed by Huang Huifeng remained motionless, and then was beaten by his mother. Lu Chang'an watched her jumping downstairs holding onto the handrail, laughed, and waved. Zhou Dongdong jumped down the stairs and ran to Lu Chang'an and took out 500 yuan from his pocket and gave it to Lu Chang'an. "What?" Mom said, "Let me give you 500 yuan, and then take your mobile phone. I will use your mobile phone to buy food at Sister Dandan's canteen from now on." Zhou Dongdong said expectantly, the pocket money given by his mother, usually 5 yuan is the most. "My mother only gave me 5 yuan as a gift for the new year." Zhou Dongdong wanted to transport the sheep dung balls back from Nanshan Ranch, but he could only earn 5 yuan. Now his mother gave him 500 yuan. Although it was meant to be kept with Brother Chang'an, it also made Zhou Dongdong feel like the kind of kid he had seen in kindergarten before, who could go to the supermarket and buy anything. "Well, let's go." Lu Chang'an handed the phone to Zhou Dongdong casually. He took a look at Shang Guan Dandan's vending machine. It could only scan the QR code to pay. It did not have the function of inserting coins or receiving banknotes. Most of the things Shang Guan Dandan sells are expensive, but there are also cheap ones. Those are some snacks she bought at Aunt Xia's canteen that she has not finished yet. For example, Aunt Xia sells Planet Cups for 5 cents each in the canteen, but she sells them here for 5 cents. These children just don't learn well, but if you let them use their mobile phones to buy things, play games, etc., they will become very smart. Zhou Dongdong took a small stool and placed it in front of the vending machine. He climbed up and clicked on the touch screen. His fingers hesitated between chocolates starting with 3 and chocolates starting with 5, but he chose the chocolate starting with 3. 5 minus 3 equal 2, the remaining money can be deposited with Brother Chang'an for next time. Zhou Dongdong scanned the QR code, then pressed the secret 6 and 8 that Chang'an brother often used. The payment was successful and he bought a box of chocolates. "Giggle, Dongdong is so cute." Shang Guan Dandan giggled while sitting on a branch, glanced at the payment account on his mobile phone, and drank water with satisfaction. Lu Chang'an turned around and glanced at Shang Guan Dandan suspiciously. He took the mobile phone from Zhou Dongdong and came back to take a look. Zhou Dongdong bought the chocolate from 3888. Obviously, neither Zhou Shuling nor Zhou Dongdong could have imagined that the items in the vending machine in Shang Guan Dandan could be so expensive. Zhou Shuling only thought that 500 yuan would be more than enough to support Shang Guan Dandan. Zhou Dongdong, a child, had never imagined that there were such expensive things in the world. She usually followed Shang Guan Dandan to buy food. The price is tens of yuan, but Shang Guan Dandan never buys any snacks or snacks that cost more than 50 yuan. Seeing that Zhou Dongdong had opened the box and started eating, Lu Chang'an turned his head and made a mouth gesture to Shang Guan Dandan, "Refund. Don't retreat." Shang Guan Dandan also responded to him with his lips. Lu Chang'an decided to call 12,315 to complain against her. Children who play mobile games and spend 648 can be refunded, and Shang Guan Dandan, a black shop-style vending machine, should also be refunded. Zhou Dongdong fed Lu Chang'an while eating by himself. Lu Chang'an was a little embarrassed. "Just eat it. If you have to ask Shang Guan Dandan for a refund, is there any hope? Don't eat it." Looking at Zhou Dongdong's face, looking forward to sharing the delicious food with him, Lu Chang'an still opened his mouth, 3888, just 3888. Shang Guandandan giggled again. She knew that when Lu Chang'an opened his mouth, it meant that the 3888 was definitely in the bag. Zhou Dongdong went to feed Shang Guandandan again. She stood under the tree and threw it up. Shang Guandandan moved up and down, stretched out his head and opened his mouth very flexibly to catch it. After playing for a while, Shang Guandandan twisted his hair around the tree trunk, stretched it out and tied it together, making a swing for Zhou Dongdong to sit and play. Lu Chang'an was still lying lazily and glanced at the sky inadvertently, but he thought of the animals in the zoo. The animals always look leisurely and at ease, lying here motionless day after day. In the eyes of some outside powers, do they look like animals in a zoo? It would be great if there were really great powers from outside the realm. Maybe they could blow themselves up. This is also an opportunity. Maybe they could understand a higher level of material civilization, spiritual civilization, cultivation civilization, and the core of alien civilization, thereby improving their abilities. Awareness and understanding of one's own existence. He had never thought about what he would do if he was ashes. After all, he had never really died, so he lacked the awe and vigilance of ordinary humans towards death. This was also his failure as a human being. Hey, this is understandable, after all, it hasn't been long since I started learning to be a human being. Who hasn't had a learning process? Dan, what is your biggest failure as a person? With the attitude of brainstorming, Lu Chang'an turned around and asked Shang Guandandan, who actually didn't know how to be a person at first glance, who would tie up someone's hair and play with it like a swing. Upon hearing this question, Shang Guandandan glanced at Lu Chang'an, then touched his thermos, pursed his lips and said nothing. You shouldn't ask her. Lu Chang'an reflected for a moment and then asked Zhou Dongdong, what is your biggest failure? Not gray. Is that your biggest failure as a human being? You can't even fly. Lu Chang'an felt that his introspection was useless. He shouldn't ask Shang Guandandan. Could he get some enlightening answer by asking Zhou Dongdong? Come up for breakfast, Zhou Shuling shouted from upstairs, and Lu Sin also yelled. Lu Sin likes to accompany Zhou Shuling to make breakfast, because when Zhou Shuling makes breakfast, she likes to taste a little for herself and then feed a little to Lu Sin. The dog's body shape has been changing from a mighty one to a round one. Lu Chang'an still found out something through reflection, and Zhou Shuling was also one of the people who shouldn't ask her philosophical questions. Zhou Shuling's philosophy of life is actually very simple: serve Lu Chang'an well and make delicious food for Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan. When they came upstairs to have breakfast, Lu Chang'an saw that Zhou Shuling's mobile phone was charging. It seemed that Zhou Shuling found that her mobile phone was out of battery when she woke up in the morning, so she gave Zhou Dongdong money and asked her to scan the QR code with Lu Chang'an's mobile phone. How important it is to charge your mobile phone in time, which cost Lu Chang'an 3888. It can be seen that the widespread anxiety about power among people is understandable and necessary. He didn't tell Zhou Shuling how much Zhou Dongdong had scanned. The excitement brought by Zhu Huntang, a sheep, had made him deeply understand Zhou Shuling's mood. We were all in the world, so we should not do to others what we don't want others to do to us. Of course, if he hadn't been involved and Zhou Dongdong had provoked Zhou Shuling into being beaten, Lu Chang'an would still have liked to see this scene. After breakfast, Lu Sin sent Zhou Dongdong to school as usual. Zhou Dongdong brought a bag of mulberry leaves and prepared to teach Songdazi and other students who were willing to learn invisibility. This is the danger of Shang Guandandan. She carries an aura of intellectual pollution that will spread out. Zhou Shuling tidied up and put on lipstick. She originally wanted to put on some makeup, but thinking about Lu Chang'an sitting at the entrance of the corridor, she couldn't leave with her face covered, so forget it. He would see him later. If you can say a good word in your mouth, even if the ancestral grave of Zhou Shuling is filled with smoke again. I've seen Qinjian before, otherwise how could I have met him? Zhou Shuling was annoyed with him, but also felt sweet and warm in her heart. When she came downstairs, she rolled her eyes at him and went to the store. "Why are you looking at me?" Lu Chang'an asked, touching his neck. Of course Zhou Shuling would not reply to him with "What are you looking at?" She twisted her waist and swayed her hips like a spring breeze that couldn't be hidden, which was too provocative. Xiaoling is really easy to give birth to. She can give birth to many children. Shang Guandandan followed Lu Chang'an's gaze and landed on Zhou Shuling's butt, and then read a poem. "I don't wake up when I sleep in spring, I hear the singing of birds everywhere, and the sound of wind and rain at night, I know how many flowers have fallen." After reading the poem, Shang Guandandan gave Lu Chang'an a meaningful look, and then went to deal with the friends who came to visit Shang Guandandan's canteen. "Dan Dan, this is too expensive for you," and Xie, as a senior canteen practitioner, put forward her opinion with a smile. In fact, when she woke up early in the morning, she saw this thing displayed outside, very conspicuous. This is a vending machine. Placing it in a community would definitely be a threat to the canteen's business. But when she came over and took a look, she knew that the status of her canteen in the community would not be shaken. What Shang Guandandan was selling was not in the community at all. Consumption level. It should be said that if her vending machine is placed in a 5-star hotel with international luxury standards, it will be about the same. It is estimated that not many people will buy those snacks worth several thousand yuan. "I've sold a lot." Shang Guandandan took out the sales record on his mobile phone and showed it to Aunt Xie. Aunt Xie looked at the sales and was immediately shocked. But then she looked at the sales records. They were all sold continuously in a short period of time. You put the sales on the vending machine and prepare to rely on it to increase the turnover, and then enter the world's top 500? But she wouldn't say anything fussy. Anyway, Shang Guandandan's vending machine would not affect her canteen business. "Dan Dan, are you selling a miracle elixir?" Old Man Qian said, pointing to a transparent glass jar containing 3 chocolate balls and selling the product for 19.99. Her planet cups cost 5 yuan each. "You know how to do business. The business is so big that when playing cards, if the 50 cents are wrong, you can recalculate it 2 or 3 times. Shang Guandandan turned a deaf ear to the suggestions and criticisms of his friends. Anyway, as long as he had enough daughters-in-law, his business would grow bigger and bigger. Thinking of this, Shang Guandandan leaned over and sat on Lu Chang'an's lap, raised his hand and touched his head. He would still have to work hard for him in the future. After all, it can be seen from Qin Yinan's performance that his daughters-in-law will eventually be more greedy for his body. Excessive demands. "I have various requests for a new book, 150,000 words, and there is a direct link below.